You know how people say, you never really know someone, even the person you share a bed with? I used to laugh when I heard that, because I thought I did. I thought I knew my husband better than I knew myself. His name was Ryan. Tall, calm, kind. The type of man who remembered how you liked your coffee, who texted you drive safe every morning, who kissed your forehead before bed even on the bad days. He was my calm in chaos, my forever, until one night, the night everything fell apart. It started like any other evening. Dinner for two. Laughter echoing across our small apartment. A candle burning between us, vanilla and cinnamon, his favorite. We talked about work, weekend plans, maybe visiting his mom. It was ordinary, peaceful, safe, until his phone buzzed, just once, a simple notification. But it shattered everything I believed in. He reached for it quickly, almost too quickly. His smile faltered, just for a second. Then he flipped the phone over, screen down, and said, "Just a work text." But I knew his tells. That tiny twitch in his jaw, the way his fingers tightened around the phone, like he was holding onto a secret. Something in me shifted. When he went to shower, I sat there, staring at that phone. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears, and I told myself, don't look. Trust him. You've built a life together. You love him, but love can't silence suspicion. The screen lit up again. A message. And even before I touched it, I saw the preview. Can't stop thinking about last night. The world around me blurred. I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled as I unlocked the phone, each second heavier than the last. And there it was, a string of messages, late-night calls, pictures, the kind of words and promises that used to be mine, now whispered to someone else. Every message was a knife. Every emoji a silent betrayal. And suddenly everything I thought I knew, the laughter, the gentle touches, the little routines, they all became lies. I sat there in silence, the phone still glowing in my hand, tears blurring the screen. My reflection stared back from the darkened glass, a woman who no longer recognized herself. When Ryan walked back into the room, towel over his shoulders, humming some tune from the shower, I could barely look at him. He noticed. "Hey, what's wrong?" he asked, concern lacing his voice. I didn't answer. I just held up the phone. For a second, just 1 second, his eyes gave it all away. Fear. Guilt. Then the mask came back on. "Emily, it's not what you think," he started, but I cut him off. "Then what is it, Ryan?" I whispered. "Because the woman who sent this, she clearly thinks she's not just a coworker." Silence. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. And I realized he wasn't searching for the truth. He was searching for an excuse. That moment, that pause, broke me. It's strange how fast a life can collapse. One moment you're someone's wife. The next, you're a stranger living inside a lie. He tried to explain, of course. Said it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. It didn't mean anything. But how do you measure betrayal? How do you forgive something that changes the way you see everything? I sat there silent as his words spilled, desperate, empty, meaningless. And all I could think was, this is the same mouth that once told me I was his world. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked through every memory. Our wedding, our first apartment, the promises he made under a sky full of stars. And each one cracked under the weight of his lies. Love doesn't die in an instant. It bleeds out, slow, painful, quiet. By sunrise, I wasn't the same woman anymore. Something in me had changed, the kind of change you don't come back from. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the blinds like nothing had happened. Birds chirped. Cars passed. The world was still moving, but mine had stopped. Ryan stood in the kitchen, pretending everything was normal. Coffee brewing, toast popping. He even asked, "You want your usual?" Like last night had been a bad dream we could just move past. I didn't answer. I just watched him. Every movement, every glance, every false normalcy. He looked at me finally, sighing. "Emily, please. Can we talk?" Talk. That word felt so small for something so big. I followed him to the table, sitting across from him. He rubbed his temples, voice low. I made a mistake, okay? It wasn't supposed to happen. It didn't mean anything. I stared at him, my chest tightening. Then why? I said softly. Did it happen more than once? His silence was the answer I feared. He looked down, ashamed. I don't know. I was stressed. Work was hard. You were distant. I felt, he hesitated, lonely. That word hit me like a slap. Lonely? I repeated. Ryan, do you have any idea how many nights I stayed up waiting for you to come home? How many times I asked what was wrong and you said nothing? Don't talk to me about lonely. He swallowed hard but didn't speak. The silence between us was deafening. Finally, I asked the question I'd been too afraid to say. Do you love her? He froze. It was a simple question, but his hesitation said everything. He looked up slowly, eyes glistening. No, he said, voice barely a whisper. I love you. I never stopped. But love shouldn't look like this. Love shouldn't hide behind locked phones and late-night messages. I stood up, heart pounding. I need to get out of here. He reached for me, but I stepped back. Please, Emily, don't walk away. We can fix this. Fix this? I laughed, a broken, bitter sound. You shattered everything. You don't fix glass, Ryan. You replace it. I grabbed my coat and left. Outside, the air was cold and sharp, cutting through the fog in my mind. I walked for hours, past the coffee shop where we had our first date, past the park where he proposed. Every memory felt poison now. When I finally stopped, I found myself in front of my best friend's apartment. Lila. She opened the door, eyes wide. Oh my God, what happened? And the moment I saw her face, I broke. The tears I'd been holding back came crashing down. She held me, whispering, It's okay. You're okay. But I wasn't. I wasn't okay. We sat for hours, me talking, her listening. I showed her the messages, told her everything. She listened quietly, then said, You don't have to decide anything right now. Just breathe. But how do you breathe when your whole world has collapsed? That night I stayed at her place. I stared at the ceiling for hours, the city lights flickering through the blinds. I thought about Ryan, the man who once looked at me like I was his forever. And I thought about the other woman, a stranger who somehow became part of my story without permission. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from Ryan. I can't sleep without you here. Please come home, please. I stared at the words for a long time. Part of me wanted to delete them, to erase him from my life completely. But another part, the part that still remembered the man he used to be, couldn't. Because love doesn't vanish when trust breaks. It lingers, stubborn and painful. The next day I went back, not to forgive him, but to face what was left. He was sitting on the couch, eyes red, a mess of apologies waiting on his lips. Before he could speak, I said, I need to hear the truth. All of it. No lies, no excuses. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. It started a few months ago, he said. She's from work. It wasn't supposed to happen, it just did. We were working late, talking, and one night... He looked down, ashamed. I crossed a line. I felt my stomach twist. Was it just once? He didn't answer. That silence broke me more than any confession could. Tears filled my eyes. Every time I trusted you, every time I defended you when people said you were distant, you were with her, weren't you? He covered his face with his hands. I'm sorry, Emily. I swear I never meant to hurt you. But he did. And sorry couldn't rewind time. I walked to the window, watching the rain fall, and whispered, You already did. That night, I packed my bags. He tried to stop me, begged me to stay, said he'd change, said we could go to therapy. But the truth is, something in me had already died. You can't rebuild on broken trust. You can only start over. As I stood at the door, he whispered, Em, please, don't give up on us. I looked back at him, the man I once thought would never hurt me, and said, I'm not giving up, Ryan. I'm just choosing myself this time. Then I left, and as the door closed behind me, I realized something the world hadn't shattered to end me. It had shattered to set me free. That evening felt unusually quiet. The sky was heavy with clouds, and the air smelled like rain. I remember standing by the window, waiting for Daniel to come home. He had texted earlier, saying he'd be late because of work. I believed him, like I always did. But something inside me felt off. A gut feeling I couldn't shake. So I decided to call him. Once, twice. No answer. My heart started racing, and before I knew it, I was grabbing my keys, telling myself I was overreacting. His office wasn't far. The building lights were dim, but one room on the top floor was still glowing. I recognized his car parked outside. My stomach dropped. Still, I climbed the stairs, each step echoing louder than my heartbeat. The closer I got, the more I could hear faint laughter. A woman's laugh. I froze for a moment, my hand trembling as I reached for the door handle. I shouldn't open it, I told myself. But curiosity and fear won. The door creaked open slightly, and that's when I saw it. Him, standing too close to her. His hand brushing her hair away as she smiled up at him. My heart stopped. The man who once made me feel like the only woman in the world looked at her the same way. I didn't move. I didn't cry. I just watched, numb. 1,000 thoughts screamed in my head, denial, rage, heartbreak. But my body refused to react. He leaned in, kissed her softly, and that was it. My world, shattered in one night. When he finally noticed me standing there, his face turned pale. "Emma, it's not what it looks like," he began. But I had already seen enough. I whispered. "You destroyed everything." Then I walked away. Into the rain, the tears blending with the storm. The city outside was sleeping, but inside my apartment the silence was deafening. The clock ticked louder than ever before, each second echoing like a countdown to something I didn't yet understand. My reflection in the window looked like a stranger. The faint streetlight illuminating tired eyes, mascara smudged from the tears I didn't remember crying. I kept asking myself, how did I end up here? Just hours ago, my world felt whole. I had love. I had trust. I had him. Now, everything that once gave me meaning had turned into something unrecognizable. That evening, I had planned something special. A quiet dinner at home, his favorite meal, a candlelit table, and the scent of jasmine that he said always reminded him of me. But the messages on his phone, the ones I stumbled upon by accident, changed everything. At first, I thought it was harmless. Maybe a coworker, a friend. But the words weren't the kind you'd send to someone you barely knew. "Can't stop thinking about last night. I miss you already." And then her name. The same woman who smiled at me at his office party. The one who complimented my dress while holding a secret behind her eyes. I remember how my hands trembled as I read. My mind screamed at me to stop, but my heart needed to know. It needed to see the truth no matter how much it hurt. When I finally looked up, the food had gone cold. The candles burned too low. I didn't even hear the door when he walked in. He smiled, kissed my forehead, and said, "It smells amazing in here." That's when I realized. Betrayal doesn't announce itself. It walks in wearing the face you love most. I couldn't speak. My throat burned with unshed tears. Every word I wanted to scream, every why, every how could you, got stuck somewhere between rage and heartbreak. He noticed something was off, but before he could ask, I handed him his phone. No words, no explanations, just silence. He froze. The color drained from his face. For a moment, I saw panic, then guilt, and finally, shame. But what shattered me most wasn't his silence. It was the way he looked down, as if my pain was too heavy for him to meet. "I can explain," he said softly, almost pleading. "Don't," I whispered. "Please don't. Whatever this is, whatever she means to you, it's already louder than your words." The room went still again. The candles flickered between us, struggling to stay alive, just like the love we once had. The hours that followed were a blur. I remember standing by the window, hearing his voice break behind me, saying things like, "It was a mistake," and "It didn't mean anything." But isn't that what they always say? If it meant nothing, why did he risk everything? He tried to touch my shoulder. I stepped away. In that small gesture, something inside me broke. Not just the trust, but the version of myself that believed love could never hurt me like this. I told him to leave. He hesitated, whispered my name one last time, then walked out. The door clicked shut, and with it, the last piece of the life I once knew. I stood there for hours, staring at the empty space he left behind. His scent still lingered, faint traces of his cologne mixed with the dinner I never got to serve. It made me sick. I opened the window just to breathe something that wasn't him. Outside, the night was quiet but heavy, the kind that holds your secrets, the kind that doesn't offer comfort. I watched the lights in distant buildings, wondering how many of them hid heartbreak just like mine. Days turned into weeks, and yet every morning felt like the same cruel replay. I'd wake up expecting to hear his voice, see his message, something that said, "It was all a nightmare." But reality was unkind. He had moved out of our apartment, his things gone. His toothbrush missing from the bathroom, his jacket no longer hanging by the door. I told everyone I was fine. I smiled in public, worked, laughed when needed. But every night, the loneliness crept back in. That hollow kind of pain that doesn't scream. It whispers, "You weren't enough." And maybe that's what haunted me most. Not that he cheated, but that he made me question myself. Was I too emotional? Too distant? Too trusting? I replayed every fight, every silence, every look that lasted a second too long, trying to pinpoint the moment when we stopped being us. But love doesn't end in one moment. It fades quietly, between unanswered messages, missed calls, and good nights that don't feel the same anymore. Then came the night I saw him again. It was raining. That kind of cold, relentless rain that soaks you even with an umbrella. I was leaving a cafe when I saw him across the street. He looked different, tired, and beside him, her, the same woman whose name burned itself into my memory. They were laughing, the same way he used to laugh with me. He reached out to brush her hair away from her face, and she smiled up at him. It was then I realized the pain wasn't in losing him. The pain was in realizing he was happy without me. I wanted to hate him. God, I wanted to hate both of them. But I couldn't. Because somewhere deep down, I still loved him. And that love felt like a curse. When I got home that night, drenched and shivering, something in me snapped. I walked to the mirror and stared at my reflection again, the same one that had looked lost weeks ago. But now, I saw something new. Anger, strength, a spark. I whispered to my reflection, "He broke you, but you're still here." And for the first time, I believed it. I picked up my phone and deleted every photo, every message, every reminder of him. Not because I didn't care, but because I had to. Because healing sometimes begins with forgetting. That night, I slept without tears. The silence no longer felt heavy. It felt like peace. Over the next few months, I rebuilt myself piece by piece. I started painting again. I met friends I'd lost touch with. I began going on walks, feeling the world instead of just existing in it. One morning, as the sun rose over the city, I realized something beautiful. Heartbreak doesn't destroy you. It refines you. It teaches you what kind of love you deserve, and more importantly, what kind you should never accept again. And though a part of me would always remember the night my world shattered, another part of me knew this truth. Sometimes the pieces that break are the ones that never fit to begin with. It had been almost a year since that night, the night my world cracked open and forced me to rebuild from pieces I didn't even know how to hold. I had moved cities by then. New apartment, new people, new rhythm. The old pain had faded into something softer. Not gone, but dulled, like the echo of a song that used to hurt too much to listen to. Life was beginning to feel normal again. Mornings filled with quiet music and coffee. Afternoons spent painting or working from the small studio I'd built near the balcony. And evenings, my favorite, when Adil and I would walk under the orange streetlights, talking about everything and nothing at all. He had a way of grounding me, of reminding me that love doesn't always have to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's gentle, patient, real. But one thing about healing they never tell you: it doesn't erase the past. It just teaches you how to live with it. It was a Thursday evening when the past decided to find me again. I was walking back from the studio when I heard someone call my name. Alina, that voice, and it stopped me mid-step. For a second I thought I was imagining it, but when I turned, there he was, Daniel, the man who shattered my world, the man I once thought I'd marry, the man who had looked me in the eyes and told me he loved me, while loving someone else behind my back. He looked different, older, tired, maybe even remorseful. His once sharp eyes now carried shadows. "Alina," he said again, softer this time. "I've been looking for you." I froze. My first instinct was to walk away. But my feet, traitors that they were, stayed rooted to the ground. "What do you want, Daniel?" "To talk. Just once, please." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a small cafe nearby. The same kind of cafe where my life once began to fall apart. We sat across from each other, two ghosts of what once was. He looked at me like he was trying to remember who I'd been. But he couldn't, because that girl no longer existed. "I heard you moved," he said, trying to smile. "I did. You look happy." "I am." The silence between us was heavy, not with longing, but with everything that had already died. "I didn't come to make things complicated," he said finally. "I just needed to say that I'm sorry. For everything. I was stupid. I didn't realize what I had until—" I stopped him right there. "Daniel," I said quietly, "you realized it. You just didn't care enough then." He looked down, guilt flickering across his face. "I lost everything," he whispered. I took a deep breath. "No, you didn't. You just let go of something that wasn't meant for you." For a moment, he said nothing. Then he looked up and said something I didn't expect. "She left me too." I almost laughed, not out of cruelty, but disbelief. The irony of it all. He told me how their relationship fell apart within months, how lies have a way of circling back, how he thought about me more than he wanted to admit. And then, with the same voice that once made me weak, he said, "I still love you. Alina, I never stopped." The words hit like a cold wind. Not painful, just empty, because once I would have given anything to hear them. But now, they meant nothing. "I'm glad you said that," I replied calmly, "because now I know I've truly moved on." When I left that cafe, I didn't cry. I didn't shake. Instead, I smiled. A quiet, peaceful smile, because closure had found me in the most unexpected way, not through revenge or apology, but through indifference. For the first time, I realized that healing wasn't about forgetting someone. It was about remembering them without losing yourself again. That night, I told Adil what happened. We were sitting on the balcony, the city lights flickering below like scattered stars. He didn't interrupt. He didn't get jealous. He just listened, the way he always did. When I finished, he said softly, "You did the right thing." I nodded. I just didn't expect it to feel so peaceful. "That's how you know it's real healing," he smiled, "when peace replaces pain." He took my hand, his touch grounding, steady. "I'm proud of you, Alina." And for the first time in a long time, I was proud of myself too. Weeks passed, and life continued its quiet rhythm. I finished my new art collection, Rebirth. Paintings filled with light, fire, and freedom. Each canvas told a story of survival. At the gallery opening, people praised the emotion, the resilience. But only I knew. Every brushstroke was a goodbye to the woman I used to be. Adil stood beside me, holding a glass of sparkling water, smiling proudly. "You've come so far," he whispered. I smiled. "No, I just finally came home to myself." Later that night, when the gallery lights dimmed and the crowd dispersed, I stood alone before my favorite painting. A woman standing on a cliff, her hair blowing in the wind, the sea roaring beneath her. Freedom, strength, surrender. I traced the outline of her silhouette with my eyes and whispered, "You survived. You loved, and you learned." The world outside hummed with life, but inside me, there was stillness. The kind of peace that doesn't need to prove anything. Because yes, my world had shattered in one night. But from the cracks, light had found its way in. 6 months had passed since that encounter with Daniel. Life had settled into something gentle, something real, but beneath the surface there was still a quiet fear, the kind that hides behind laughter, waiting for silence to return so it can whisper again. I told myself I had healed. I told myself that love no longer scared me. But the truth? Healing teaches you peace, not immunity. Adil had become a constant in my life. He was the kind of man who didn't need to promise love. He proved it in the smallest ways. The way he brewed my coffee exactly how I liked it. 1 sugar, no cream. The way he listened when I rambled about art. Or when my silences said more than my words ever could. The way he looked at me like I was not something broken, but something becoming. But even with all that, sometimes, I'd catch myself waiting for the pain. Waiting for history to repeat itself. Because once your heart's been burned, it learns to fear the warmth too. One evening, while we were preparing dinner, I caught myself staring at him, just watching, quietly. He noticed. "What?" he asked, smiling. "Nothing," I said quickly. "Alina," he chuckled, "you're doing that thing again." "What thing?" "The one where you stare at me like you're waiting for me to disappear." My heart skipped. "I'm not." "Yes, you are." His voice softened. "You don't have to keep looking for ghosts where there aren't any." I looked down, embarrassed, but he walked around the counter and tilted my chin up. "I'm not him, Alina," he said quietly. "And you're not the woman he left behind anymore." That night, I cried. Not because I was sad, but because, for the first time, someone saw the storm inside me and didn't flinch. The next morning, the world felt lighter. I went for a walk through the park near our apartment, the same one where the cherry trees were beginning to bloom again. There's something about spring that always feels like forgiveness, nature's way of reminding us that beauty can grow even after winter. A little girl was chasing her dog across the path, laughing uncontrollably, and for a fleeting second, I saw myself, before heartbreak, before fear, before the weight of what-ifs. When I came home, Adil was sitting by the window sketching something. He looked up and smiled. "You're glowing." "Am I?" I teased. "Yeah," he said, like someone who finally stopped fighting her own heart. And maybe he was right. Even with all the peace we had carved out, life has a way of sneaking in reminders that the past never truly lets go. It began subtly. A text notification on Adil's phone that he dismissed too quickly. A fleeting phone call from someone I didn't know. A laugh shared over a memory I wasn't part of. Each small thing nudged at a lingering uncertainty, and though I tried to ignore it, the tiny tremors grew louder in the quiet moments when I was alone. I couldn't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, Something from his old life might return to haunt us. One evening, a week after our return from the coast, I decided to surprise him at his studio. I pushed open the door and found the room unusually quiet. Artworks were scattered, brushes left half-dipped in paint, and the sunlight streamed through, the tall windows highlighting motes of dust floating lazily in the air. But it wasn't the quiet that caught me off guard. It was her. Layla. She was standing by the canvas, her expression unreadable, yet undeniably present. For a heartbeat, time froze. Adil, behind her, turned sharply, surprise and guilt flickering across his face. "Alina," he started, but the words died in the back of his throat. I felt my stomach drop. Anger, fear, and heartbreak collided inside me, a storm I hadn't felt in months. Layla's gaze shifted to me. I didn't mean to intrude," she said, her voice calm but pointed, as if testing boundaries. I wanted to scream, to run, to demand answers. Instead, I inhaled slowly, forcing my voice to remain steady. "Why are you here?" She hesitated. "I came to apologize, to explain. I didn't know how else to do it." Adil stepped closer to me, his hand brushing mine subtly, grounding me. "Alina, please. She's leaving soon. I promise nothing will happen." But her presence was a shadow over the fragile trust we had rebuilt. Later that night, after Layla had left, the apartment was silent, except for the ticking of the clock. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the wall. Adil's hand rested on my shoulder, but I could feel the tension radiating between us. "I didn't expect that," I whispered. "I know," he said softly. "I didn't either. But I want you to know, nothing she does, says, or asks could ever change what we have. You are my present, my future." I wanted to believe him, but the ache of betrayal still lingered in my chest. The ghost of doubt whispered relentlessly. The next days were a test of patience, understanding, and love. Adil made efforts to reassure me, long walks together, gentle touches, small acts of care. But every time I saw a shadow on his face, a hesitation in his eyes, my heart tightened. One rainy evening, I found myself at our favorite cafe, nursing a cup of tea and watching the rain blur the world outside. I felt the warmth of someone approaching and looked up. It was him. Adil. "Alina," he said softly, sliding into the seat across from me. "I want to tell you everything, every detail about her visit. No secrets, no omissions." I braced myself. Layla came because she wanted closure. She wanted to understand why things ended between us. And she thought she might find answers from me. I told her I'm happy now, that my life is with you. That's all. I couldn't ever consider anything else. You're my life, Alina. Always. Tears welled up in my eyes, a mix of relief and lingering fear. "I want to believe you," I said quietly. "You can," he whispered, reaching for my hand across the table. "I will do everything to earn your trust every day." And for the first time in weeks, I let myself believe. As the months passed, the shadow of Layla faded, replaced by the bright warmth of our life together. We moved into a bigger apartment, painted the walls in soft, comforting tones, and filled it with memories. Photographs, mementos, laughter echoing in every room. Adil surprised me with a small garden on the balcony, planting flowers I loved, and every evening we'd watch the sunset together, a ritual that became sacred. I realized love isn't about the absence of fear. It's about choosing each other, day after day, even when uncertainty lingers at the edges. One evening, as we stood on the balcony, the city lights twinkling below like 1,000 tiny promises, I felt a profound sense of peace. "I can't believe how far we've come," I whispered. We've come far because we chose each other, Adil replied. Because we trusted, even when it was hard. I leaned into him, letting his warmth seep into my soul. I love you, I murmured. And I love you, he said. Forever, the past had tried to shake us, to test the strength of what we had rebuilt. But in the end, it was love, unwavering, patient, and resilient, that triumphed. The world outside was unpredictable, full of challenges and shadows. But in each other's arms, we found certainty, hope, and the quiet, unshakable truth. Some love is worth fighting for. Some hearts are worth trusting again. And sometimes, after heartbreak and betrayal, the most beautiful beginnings emerge. Days passed, and life slowly resumed its rhythm. Yet, beneath the ordinary routine, there was a subtle undercurrent, a quiet awareness that neither of us could ignore. Adil and I had faced the shadow of the past together. Yes, but some questions remained unspoken, lingering in corners of our hearts where words dared not reach. One evening, after work, I returned home to find him sitting at the kitchen table, papers scattered in front of him. The soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant city noises outside created a cocoon of domestic intimacy. He looked up as I entered, and for a moment, the air between us was charged with something I couldn't name. Anticipation, tension, longing, maybe a mix of all three. Hey, I said, trying to sound casual, though my pulse quickened. Hey, he replied, his voice calm but his eyes were searching. I've been thinking about us. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Thinking is dangerous sometimes, I teased lightly, though my stomach tightened. He smiled faintly, but there was seriousness beneath the curve of his lips. I mean it. After everything, the doubts, the fear, the past creeping back, I realized something important. I raised an eyebrow, silently urging him to continue. Love isn't just about passion or comfort, he said slowly. It's about resilience, about choosing each other, even when the world, or our own insecurities, threatens to pull us apart. And I want to make that choice every day. I want us to be brave together. A shiver ran down my spine. His words touched a part of me I had guarded for so long. The part that still remembered fear, betrayal, and heartbreak, yet still longed for trust and connection. I want that too, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. But it's hard, Adil. It's hard to forget, to move on completely when the memory of someone else still lingers. It's not about doubt in you. It's about the echoes of the past haunting me. He reached across the table, taking my hand in his. His touch was firm, grounding, as if he could anchor me to the present, to reality, to us. I understand, and I'll give you all the time you need. But know this, my heart is here, always. You're the only one I want, Alina. Not yesterday, not anyone else, just you. Right here, right now. Tears pricked the corners of my eyes. I squeezed his hand, feeling the raw honesty in his words, the truth I had been craving. I want to believe that, I murmured. You will, he said softly. Step by step, moment by moment, and we'll face anything together. The shadows, the doubts, everything. Together. For hours we sat there, hands intertwined, words unnecessary. We let silence speak the language of trust, of commitment, of love that had survived storms yet remained unbroken. Outside, the city moved on, but in our little kitchen, time slowed. That night, as we lay in bed, I traced circles on his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. Each beat was a promise, each breath a reminder that despite fear, despite past pain, we had found our way back to each other. And in that warmth, I finally allowed myself to hope. Hope for a love strong enough to endure, resilient enough to flourish, and brave enough to face whatever shadows might come our way. Weeks went by, and slowly, life began to settle into something that felt normal again. Morning coffee, laughter over breakfast, gentle evening walks. Those little rituals started to rebuild the trust between us brick by brick. Yet deep down, I could sense something unspoken. In Adil, a quiet unease he didn't show but couldn't hide completely. It was a Friday evening when Everything shifted again. I was folding laundry. In the living room when his phone buzzed on the table, the name that flashed across the screen made my breath hitch. Unknown number. For a moment, I hesitated. Normally, I never checked his phone, not anymore. We had promised each other trust. But that one buzz, that one flash of light felt like a whisper from the universe. Something urged me to look. I picked it up. The message preview read, "You can't hide forever, Adil. She deserves to know the truth." My heart stopped. My vision blurred. The phone buzzed again. "You think you can erase what happened? It doesn't work like that." My fingers trembled as I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding in my ears. Who was this? What truth? What was he hiding? I didn't open the message, not yet. I placed the phone back exactly as it was, my hands cold. When Adil walked in moments later, smiling, carrying takeout, my heart twisted painfully. "Chinese or Italian?" he asked cheerfully. "They were both open, so Who's been texting you?" I blurted out before I could stop myself. His face fell instantly. "What?" The unknown number. "They said you're hiding something from me." His expression froze. Not anger, not guilt. Just shock. Then, after a few seconds, he exhaled slowly and set the bags down. "Alina," he said carefully, "I was hoping this wouldn't reach you." That sentence alone sent chills down my spine. "So it's true? There is something?" He rubbed his temples. "It's not what you think, but yes, there's something I didn't tell you, because I wanted to protect you, not lie to you." "Protect me from what?" My voice cracked. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with conflict. "From a part of my past that has nothing to do with us. From someone who refuses to let go." I felt dizzy. "You mean another woman?" He didn't answer immediately, and that silence said everything. "Her name was Zara," he finally said. "Before you and I met, we were together. It ended badly. She became obsessed. I cut contact, changed my number, even moved cities. I thought it was over." I stared at him, struggling to breathe. "And now she's back?" He nodded grimly. "Looks like it." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. My mind raced. Was she telling the truth? Was Adil lying again? Finally, I whispered, "Adil, I don't know what to believe anymore." He stepped closer, desperate, pleading. "Please, Alina, don't let her win. Don't let her destroy what we've rebuilt. I swear to you, there's nothing between us. But she'll do anything to make you doubt me." His words sounded sincere. But I'd heard sincerity before, from people who weren't. That night, after he fell asleep, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. My mind kept returning to that text. She deserves to know the truth. What truth was left to uncover? I decided then I wouldn't just sit and wonder. I would find out myself. The next morning, I woke with a tight knot in my chest, my mind still tangled in the messages from the unknown number. Adil had left early for work, leaving behind a cup of half-drunk coffee and the faint scent of his cologne lingering in the kitchen. I stared at the steam curling upward, my thoughts racing faster than my heart. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't simply wait, hope, or trust blindly. Something, intuition, fear, or perhaps stubbornness, told me I had to uncover the truth about Zara myself. Pulling my laptop onto the kitchen table, I opened a private browser window and began my search. Her name was common enough to make it difficult, but not impossible. I combed through social media profiles, news articles, old forums, even obscure blog posts. Piece by piece, a picture began to emerge. Zara was beautiful, yes, but there was something in her gaze. Sharp, calculating, almost predatory. Photos showed her smiling, but her eyes betrayed a constant watchfulness, a vigilance as though she were always waiting for someone to falter. As I dug deeper, I found posts she had made years ago, vague but filled with obsession, talking about unfinished stories and never letting go. I realized quickly that she wasn't just a memory of Adil's past. She was someone who thrived on control, someone who had difficulty releasing what wasn't hers to keep. Then I found it, a recent post. a picture of a coffee shop. The exact coffee shop where Adil had taken me last week. The timestamp indicated it was posted just 3 days ago. My stomach dropped. She was closer than I thought. She had been watching, maybe even planning. I sank back into the chair, overwhelmed. Every comforting thought I had about Adil's honesty, our rebuilt trust, now threatened to crumble. But I also realized I couldn't let fear control me. If I wanted to protect what I had with him, I had to confront this shadow. I decided to call a friend who knew a little about online tracking. "I need your help," I said, my voice trembling. "Someone from his past. She's resurfaced, and I think she's dangerous. I don't know what to do." By evening, armed, with new information and subtle tracking techniques, I felt slightly more prepared. I didn't know exactly what Zara wanted, or how far she'd go, but I knew one thing. I would not let her ruin everything I had worked for. That night, I confronted Adil. He listened silently as I recounted everything I had discovered. His hands clenched into fists, his jaw tight. "Alina," he said, voice strained. "I didn't know she had resurfaced. I swear I had no idea she was back in town. I should have told you as soon as I found out. I didn't want to scare you, or push you away." I searched his eyes, looking for even the smallest hint of deception, but I found none. Only fear. Fear of losing me. Fear of what she might do. Fear of facing the consequences of the past. "We need to face this together," I said, my voice firm, steady. "I won't let her manipulate me. I won't let her manipulate us." Adil nodded, relief mingling with anxiety. "You're right. Together." We spent hours planning, talking strategy, considering every possible scenario. The unknown numbers warning lingered in my mind, but with each passing hour, I felt a little stronger, a little more capable. I realized that love wasn't just about shared laughter or quiet moments. It was also about fighting the storms that threatened to tear you apart. The next morning, armed with knowledge and determination, I went out to confront the reality I had unearthed. Zara was out there somewhere, weaving shadows into our lives, and I was ready to face her. It was late afternoon when I finally found her. Not by chance, but by following the digital breadcrumbs she had unwittingly left behind. She was sitting at a small cafe downtown, the same one Adil had once mentioned as a place he used to frequent. From my vantage point across the street, I could see her clearly. Zara, radiant and composed, yet with an intensity in her eyes that sent a shiver down my spine. I took a deep breath, clutching my purse tightly. My heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination. This wasn't just about curiosity or revenge. It was about reclaiming the life I had with Adil, about setting boundaries that could no longer be ignored. I walked in slowly, letting my presence register. Zara's gaze lifted, and for the first time, she noticed me. There was a flicker of recognition, and then, almost immediately, a small, cunning smile spread across her face. "Well, well," she said, her voice smooth and deliberate. "I didn't expect to see you so bold." "Bold?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I call it surviving. I call it protecting what's mine." She laughed softly, the sound like glass shattering. "Protecting? From what, exactly? From a past that never really belonged to you?" I felt the heat rise in my chest. "You've been manipulating him, following him, sending messages, intruding in our lives, and you know it." Her smile faltered for a moment, just enough for me to see a crack in her carefully constructed composure. "Adil. He was mine first. I loved him. I still care for him. You have no idea what I gave up for him. I don't care about what you gave up. I said firmly, stepping closer. What I care about is that you stay out of our lives, that you leave him and me alone. Her eyes narrowed, a spark of challenge flashing there. And what if I don't? I froze for a heartbeat, the tension in the room stretching like a taut wire. Then I remembered why I was here. Not to cower, not to beg, but to stand my ground. I will not let you ruin us, I said, my voice steady now. You can try to haunt him with your past, but I am his present, and I am not afraid of you. For a long moment she stared at me, assessing, calculating. Then, with a subtle tilt of her head, she said, "Very well. But be careful, Alina. People's pasts never truly stay buried. You might think you're safe, but the truth always finds a way." Her words hung in the air, heavy and threatening, as she stood and walked out of the cafe, disappearing into the bustling streets. I remained seated, trying to steady my breathing. My body was tense, my mind racing. I knew one thing. This confrontation was only the beginning. Zara would not give up easily. But for the first time, I felt a flicker of empowerment. I had faced her directly, spoken my truth, and refused to be intimidated. Later that evening, when I returned home, Adil was there, pacing nervously in the living room. His eyes widened when he saw me. "Alina?" he asked, voice trembling. "I found her," I said quietly. "I confronted her. She knows we're not going to be pushed aside. She knows we're together." Relief washed over his face, but so did worry. "You're brave," he said softly, stepping closer. "But I'm scared for you. For us." "I know," I whispered. "But we can't live in fear. We have to face what comes. Together." He nodded, pulling me into a hug. For the first time in weeks, I felt a measure of peace. Not because the danger was gone, it wasn't, but because I had taken control of my own story. We spent the rest of the night planning, talking strategy, and strengthening the trust between us. I realized that love wasn't just about passion or tenderness. It was also about courage, resilience, and standing firm when faced with the shadows of the past. And as I lay in bed that night, Adil's hand in mine, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not naive hope, but the kind born from strength and determination. I knew the battles ahead wouldn't be easy. Zara was still out there, scheming and watching. But I also knew this. We were stronger together, and we would not let her shadow define our future. The storm had come, the storm had raged, and now together, we were ready to face whatever came next. Weeks passed since that tense confrontation at the cafe. Life had returned to a semblance of normal, but the shadow of Zara lingered like a storm cloud on the horizon. Every text, every email, every social media post made me jump. Adil sensed it too. The tension that never fully left the room. The unspoken worry that this storm wasn't over. Then, one rainy evening, it all came crashing down. I was home alone. The sound of rain drumming against the windows when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I hesitated, heart pounding. But curiosity, and a growing sense of dread, made me answer. "Hello?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Alina," Zara's voice purred from the other end. "Did you really think you could stop me? Did you really think standing up to me would be enough?" I felt my stomach twist. "What do you want, Zara?" "Truth," she said simply. "I want him to know everything. Every secret he's never heard. Every lie he's been told. I want to show him who you really are, and who he really is. Only then will you understand why I'm here." The line went dead before I could respond. My hands trembled. I realized in that moment that this wasn't just about jealousy or obsession. This was about power, control, a desperate attempt to rewrite history and drag us both into her chaos. When Adil returned that night, I told him everything. His face turned pale as I recounted the call, the threats, and the intensity of Zara's obsession. "We need to end this," I said, gripping his hands tightly. "Once and for all." He nodded, determination flashing in his eyes. "We face it together. No more running, no more hiding. She wants the drama. Let's give her closure. On our terms." The next morning, we arranged to meet Zara at a neutral location, a quiet park on the outskirts of town. We were calm, calculated, prepared. But as we approached, my heart raced. She was already there, standing beneath a large oak tree, her silhouette framed by the mist of early morning. "Alina," she called out, voice soft but edged with menace. "And Adil, I'm glad you came. I have so much to tell you, so many truths you've never wanted to hear." I squared my shoulders. "Then tell us, once and for all." She smiled, a slow chilling curve of her lips. "Adil, you've always kept things from her, haven't you? Little omissions, half-truths, and yet she trusted you completely. Do you know what it feels like to be erased from someone's life, from their memories, from their heart?" Adil looked at her, confusion and anger mixing on his face. "What are you talking about?" Zara's eyes glinted. "I'm talking about the night in college, the time he chose comfort over honesty, the lies he told to protect you, Alina, and himself. And Alina, you think you know him now, but do you? Do you really?" I felt my chest tighten. Part of me wanted to step back, to shrink, to avoid the pain she was unleashing. But another part, the part that had fought, researched, and stood my ground, forced me forward. "Enough," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "No more games. If you have secrets to reveal, do it now. But know this, we are not afraid of the truth." Zara paused, studying us. Then, almost imperceptibly, her shoulders slumped. For a moment, I saw vulnerability behind her calculated menace. "You're stronger than I thought," she murmured. "Stronger than he thought. And maybe you deserve to hear everything." She began to speak, revealing the old secrets of Adil's past, moments of fear, choices made in desperation, regrets he had buried deep. With each confession, I felt the shock, the betrayal, the sting of anger, but I also felt a strange clarity. These weren't lies meant to harm me. These were truths of a man who had loved, faltered, and grown. Adil didn't flinch. He faced the revelations with me, holding my hand tightly. Together, we processed the storm of information, confronting every shadow and mistake. And then, as if a weight had been lifted, Zara's presence began to fade. "I see now," she said finally, her voice quieter, almost human. "You are not mine to destroy. You are untouchable." With that, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the morning fog. I watched until she was gone, until the final trace of her shadow vanished from our sight. I turned to Adil, tears in my eyes. "It's over," I whispered. He pulled me close, holding me as if we could shield each other from everything else in the world. "It's over," he repeated, his voice breaking slightly. "We survived. Together." For the first time in weeks, I felt true peace. The storm had passed. The shadow that had threatened our love had been confronted, faced, and finally released. That night, as we sat together in our quiet home, I realized something profound. Love was never just about passion, desire, or comfort. It was about courage, resilience, trust, and the willingness to confront the shadows of the past, together. And as I rested my head against Adil's chest, I knew that nothing, not secrets, not obsessions, not shadows, could ever break the bond we had forged. We had survived the storm, and now finally we could truly breathe again. Fade out with soft, intimate piano music,